Hello, my dear future chartered accountants. Good morning to all of you. We are doing gradation classes. Let us move on. Let us do problems on Ind AS 20, that is government grants. Let us read this problem. A Limited received a government grant of rupees 10 lakh to defray expenses for environmental protection. Expected environmental cost to be incurred is 3 lakh per annum over next 5 years. How A Limited should present such related income in the financial statements. So basically, how it should be recognized, how it should be disclosed. So 10 lakh is the expenses, the 10 lakh is the government grant they're getting, and it is spread across 5 years. So the standard says whenever the benefit is going to be received, in that scenario, that should be recognized in the P&L account. So benefit is received over a 5 years because the expense grant is towards the expense. So 10 lakh divided by 5, you will get 2 lakh per annum, and 3 lakh is the cost incurred, 2 lakh is the refund or grant. So balance amount, environmental expense 1 lakh will be shown. That is method 2 actually. So 3 lakh is the expense incurred, 2 lakh is the government grant apportioned, net amount expense 1 lakh. That is one method. Other method is you show in the expense side 3 lakh, and in the other income credit side 2 lakh. Effectively the net impact on P&L account is 1 lakh only. So either it is net amount 1 lakh, or you show 3 lakh expense separately, 2 lakh income separately. Both the methods are available. So one as a credit in the P&L account as a part of other income, or as a reduction from related expense. So we have the two methods applicable in this situation. You can read through it for detailed answers. Let's move on. A Limited has received a grant of rupees 10 crore in the year 2001-2 from a local government in the form of subsidy for selling goods at a lower price. Look at the purpose for which grant is received, for selling goods at a lower price. A typical example you can think of, a subsidy received. You know, when gas, now gas subsidy and all is removed, when LPG cylinders come to you, it comes at a subsidized rate. So the company which makes that LPG will give you at, let's say, 1,000 rupees, and you don't have to pay full 1,000. You pay only like 850. 150 rupees will be paid by government. That is what basically subsidy, like a grant you can say, but that is on per unit basis. But in this case, you have received a full amount, 10 crore. So that it is selling goods at a lower price to lower income poor people in particular area for 2 years. A Limited had accounted for the grant as income in the year 2001-2. While accounting for grant in the year 1-2, A Limited was reasonably assured that all the conditions attached to the grant will be complied with. However, in the year 2005-6, it was found that A Limited has not complied with the above condition and therefore noticed the refund of grant being served to A Limited has contested but lost in the court in 5-6, and now grant is fully repayable. How should A Limited reflect the payable grant in financial statements ending 2005-6? So basically, when refund of grant occurs, you should do whatever you have done earlier, now you have to reverse it. As simple as that. So previously, you would have taken this to income because this is towards sales concession, selling price concession. You would have taken to P&L accounts, and therefore, when refund comes, when refund have to be done, you should still take it to P&L account. Let's see what institute says. It is assumed that the accounting done in the previous year was not incorrect and was not in the error as per Ind AS 8. Okay. Para 18 Ind AS 30 become payable shall be accounted as change in accounting estimate. It should be accounted as an accounting estimate in the year in which its refund is become payable. So you can also refer Ind AS 8 on this occasion. Repayment of grant to let income shall be applied first against unamortized deferred credit recognized, if any, in this case nothing. To the extent repayable exceeds, so when no deferred credit exists, repayment should be recognized in P&L account. So repayment of grant related to shall be increase in carrying amount on asset or reduction in deferred income the cumulative additional depreciation would have been recognized in P&L account. Okay, I don't know why they have talked so much, but in this situation, what basically happens? Assuming no debit credit exists, therefore repayment recognized in P&L account. For that purpose, they have to give so much of gain. So first you recognize the government grant, grant to grant payable, and payable is to bank, and this payable will be grant account will be transferred expensed in P&L account. They have not asked journal entry, so you don't have to pass this full entry. You can pass one entry also, grant account expense to bank repayable, sufficient. They are not asked in journal entry, so you can just explain in words like this, which is sufficient. Let's move on. ABC Limited is a government company and is first time adopter of Ind AS as per previous GAAP. The contribution received by ABC Limited from government grant as per AS 12. It is in the nature of promoter's grant. You know what it would have been done? It would have been transferred to capital reserve, not to taken to P&L account. But Ind AS 20 does not allow that because we follow income method. On some reasonable basis, any grant received should hit P&L account in 1 year or the another year. So from government, which holds 100% shareholding in ABC Limited, which is in the nature of promoter's contribution, have been recognized in capital reserve and treated as part of shareholders' funds in accordance with AS 12. I just explained to you. State whether the accounting treatment of grant in the nature of promoter's contribution as per AS 12 is also permitted under Ind AS 20 and disclosure government assistance. So as I told you, it's not at all allowed under Ind AS 20. On some reasonable basis, it should be taken to P&L account. Let's see what they say. Paragraph 2 of Ind AS 20 states that the standard does not deal with government participation in ownership of entity. Since ABC Limited is a government entity, it implies government has 100% shareholding. They only have given which holds. Accordingly, Ind AS 20 needs to determine whether payment is provided as a shareholder or as a government. If as a shareholder, equity contribution will be recorded in equity, that is share capital will be there. But grant will be shown in the statement of profit and loss. Where it is concluded that it is nature of government grant, entity shall apply the principle of Ind AS 20 retrospectively as specified in Ind AS 101. Ind AS 20 requires all grants to be recognized in income on a systematic basis. Okay, what is the key word to be remembered? On a systematic basis over the periods in which entity recognizes an expense, because grant would be given for some purpose. Based on that purpose, the related cost which grants and intended to compensate. Unlike AS 12, Ind AS 20 requires grant to be classified either as a capital or as income, does not permit recognition of government grants in the nature of promoter's contribution directly to shareholders' funds. So basically what they are telling, if the amount is received in the nature of equity shareholder, that's like an amount received from shareholder towards share capital, that you take it to share capital. But if it is received from a government, not as owner, amount received from a government, like a subsidy, like a grant, then you cannot treat this as promoter's contribution and all. You have to transfer on some reasonable basis, on a systematic basis to P&L account over the period of years in which the benefit is expected to be received. Because the grant would be related to a particular purpose. If it is a grant, then the grant will be for a particular purpose, so that will hit the P&L account, and whenever that hit the P&L account, even grant should come to P&L account. So it's a straightforward one. Let's move forward. Rainbow Limited is carrying out various projects for which company has either received government grant, financial assistance, or in the process of receiving the same. The company has received 2 grants of rupees 1 lakh each relating to the following ongoing research and development projects. So 2 grant is received. Basically, we should suggest the accounting treatment. The first grant relates to Clean River project, which involves research into the effect of various chemicals waste from the industrial area in Madhya Pradesh. However, no major steps have been completed by Rainbow Limited to commence this research. So second grant, relates to commercial development of new development that can be used to manufacture eco-friendly substitute for existing plastic products. The Rainbow is confident about the technical feasibility and the financial viability of the new technology, which will be available for sale by April 2003. So basically, in the first case, no steps have been completed, the purpose for which the grant is given towards research. In the second case, Rainbow Limited is confident about the feasibility. There's a major difference between the two grants, the status of that. In September 2001, due to the floods near one of its factories, entire production was lost and Rainbow Limited had to shut down the factory for 3 months. Thus, the state government announced a compensation package. Oh, one more you have, third one actually. Compensation package for the manufacturing entities affected due to floods. As per the scheme, Rainbow Limited is entitled to compensation based on average of previous 3-month sales figure prior to floods, for which companies required to submit an application form before June 2002 with the necessary figures. The financial statements of Rainbow Limited are adopted on 31st May 2002, by which the data form would not have been filed. The state government state the accounting treatment. So we have 3 accounting treatment actually. One is towards a Clean River project, which is yet to be started, yet to be progressed. The second grant is towards some technology which is in reasonable progress. The entity is confident of feasibility, technical as well as financial. And third one is flood related compensation. So let's see how the treatment is going to happen. Okay. So first thing, related to the first grant, no steps have been completed. That is fine. But in the grant, have the government put some conditions? You have to complete this. They said first grants relates to this. Was given. That's all. Grant was given. Have they put conditions? No problem. They have the government put conditions that you have to complete this much of stage, then only you'll get the grant. If some conditions are attached, then you would have told. If some conditions were there, then you have to tell only after satisfying the conditions, then only it should be recognized. But it seems no such conditions. So first part of the grant, no, it seems, write down those words in exam. Seems no conditions put across by government, or it is unconditional. So grant is recognized immediately. Grant is taken to P&L account immediately. You can see it. Grant is recognized immediately in P&L account. Alternatively, you can also do related to expenditure will be recognized over the year of expenditure being incurred. So when you are expected to incur the expenditure, you can recognize the grant alternative. But in this case, I would recommend go with the first case. That is, since no conditions attached, taken to P&L account immediately. A second grant relates to commercial development of a new equipment. What is the special feature? Equipment means depreciable asset. So when the grant is towards a depreciable asset, you have two choices. Either you can subtract from the cost of the asset and remaining amount you can depreciate over useful life, or in the proportion you recognize the grant to the deferred income, and in the proportion of depreciation take the deferred income to the P&L account. That's what they have told in the second grant. Third grant basically is towards the flood, so you can recognize the grant immediately, but the point is by 30th June, for which the company is required to submit an application form, but submitted the claim form would have not been filed this with this government. So accounts have been filed by 31st of May, but by 31st of May you are not yet filed. So the confirmation is not there. You understand, right? For you to get the benefit of grant, you have to file the form. I know time is dealt till 30th of June. That is for legal compliance. That's for eligibility. But for accounting purpose, the status of grant of the 31st of March, condition existing on the 31st of March, should be confirmed by the event before approval of accounts, before the balance sheet approval. Before the 31st of May, you have not filed the form, you have not got the confirmation yet. Sir, I may get a confirmation after 31st of May. I have time till 30th of June. That is not considered, Baba, because it is after balance sheet approval. That becomes events after balance sheet date, and that's not an event after balance sheet date for the purpose of Ind AS 10. So, as on 31st of May, the application form is still pending. There is no confirmation regarding the approval. Therefore, in the year 2002, it is recommended this government grant related to the flood compensation not expected to be recognized. That's what they say. Since the year 2001-2, the application form could not be submitted due to the adoption of answer with respect to sales figures before flood. Rainbow Limited should not recognize the grant as income or receivable on 31st March 2002. Next year, you apply for the government approves. Next year, you take it to P&L account. It's up fair. Next year, you can take it, but not in the year 2001. Okay. So you can read through the detailed solution on this slide later. You can take a screenshot and read through that. Or answer also would be available. Okay, let's move on. An entity opens a new factory and receives a grant of 15,000 in respect of capital equipment costing 1 lakh. It depreciates the plant and machinery at 20% on straight line basis. Show the treatment of profit and loss and the balance sheet extract in respect of grants for the first year and both the methods as per Ind AS 20. What are the two methods? You must be aware of it. The same method as is available in AS 20 or AS 12 also. One option, you subtract from the grant from the cost of the asset, the remaining amount you depreciate over useful life. The second method available, asset you depreciate separately, you take it to P&L account depreciation. The proportion of depreciation on same basis, you take the grant to deferred income, and deferred income on the base of depreciation, same proportion, you take a deferred income to P&L account. So to tell you that quickly the answer, 1 lakh, if you subtract 15,000, you get balance 85,000. 20% over straight line basis, so you can do basically remaining life. I think 20% means 5 years, right? 20%, 20, 20, 25 years you get. So you can just do into 20%. I think 17,000 you get. $17,000 is what you can take it to P&L account every year. Depreciation. Another method, 1 lakh, 20%. That means 20,000 you take as depreciation. 15,000 also over a period of 5 years, same proportion, straight line method, no, easy. Or 20% also you can take. You get 3,000 as income. So 20,000 you take it to depreciation, 3,000 as deferred income amortization, effectively same impact 17,000. So I'll show you what they've asked. Deferred income extract, P&L account, depreciation 1 lakh into 20% 20,000, government grant 3,000. How you got the government grant 3,000? I just show it to you. Government grant deferred income account. Okay, they have not asked ledger, but anyway, we have done it. By grant received 15,000. To profit and loss 20% that is spread across 5 years. Balance 12,000 carry forward to next year. So statement of profit and loss, 20,000 is the expense depreciation, 3,000 is the portion of government grant transferred, amortized to P&L account. Balance sheet, depreciation of asset 1,20,000 depreciation, balance 80,000. Government grant, because long term in nature, you show under non-current liabilities. Government grant 12,000 is what you received. 3,000 is current liability, which we have subtracted. Balance amount is 9,000. Out of 9,000, 3,000 is current because it's going to be reversed in the next 1 year. Balance 6,000 is non-current, which is going to be reversed in the subsequent years. Sorry, I explain a little bit differently. 15,000 was the government grant. 3,000 was amortized. Balance was 12,000. Out of 12,000, 3,000 will be amortized in the immediate next year, which is under current liability. Balance 9,000, which is going to be reversed after next year. So beyond 12 months, non-current liability. So 3,000 is shown as current liability government grant. 9,000 is shown as non-current liability government grant. That's the exact balance sheet for you. If it is deducted from the cost of the asset, then straightforward depreciation 20,000. How we calculate? If 1 lakh minus 15,000 20%, net amount I showed you already 17,000. And in the balance sheet, 1 lakh cost of the asset, 15,000 grant subtracted, 85,000 is the net cost, and depreciation 17,000. The balance 68,000 comes in the balance sheet. So that's the very straightforward one. You can go through this question for your reference. Very straightforward, typical problem that you might come across. You would have seen a lot more problem like this from your intermediate level. A company receives a capped grant of 30,000 on 31st March 2001. The grant is towards cost of training young apprentice. Training program is expected to last for 18 months starting from April 2001. Actual cost of incurring on 2001-2 was 50,000 and in the year 2002 was 25,000. State how this grant should be accounted for. Okay, you received on 31st of March 2001, but the benefit is expected received next 18 months. So on the balance sheet you received, so on that date it will be recognized as a liability on 31st March 2001. And you will spread across now period, because based on expense you will not know the actual expense now itself. So you will spread across based on the number of months. So next coming year 12 months, next 6 months. So you divide 30,000 in the ratio of 12 is to 6. 2 is to 1. I think you get 20,000 into 12 by 18 into 6 by 18. 20,000 and 10,000. So basically on 31st of March 2001, 20,000 is relevant for the immediate next 12 months. 10,000 is relevant for the next 6 months, total 18 months. So as on 31st March 2001, this is classified as current liability under government grant, and this 10,000 will be shown under non-current liability. That's what they told. 20,000 is shown as current and would be recognized in the year next year, coming year. And the balance amount of 10,000 will be shown as non-current and will be recognized in the subsequent year. So on 31st March 2001-2, there would be balance of 10,000 and that will be taken to the next year P&L account, that is over a period of basically 2 years. Extract, how do you show it? As I just told you, on 31st March 2001, 30,000 as the amount received. On the date of receipt, 20,000 is current, relevant for next 12 months. 10,000 is non-current, relevant for next 6 months. And 31st March 2002, what happens? you take the 20,000 government grant to other income, you can show under that method, or expense is 50,000 and the training cost is 20,000, so you show the net amount. So you can show income 20,000 separately, expense 50,000 separately, or you can show net expense. Both are allowed as per the standard. So once you've taken 20,000 to the P&L account, next year what remains? Only balance 10,000 remains, and that is for next 6 months. So this will be shown as current. So again, the year 2002, you have two choices. You can show the income 10,000 separately, 25,000 expense separately, or 10,000 minus 25,000, 15,000 net expense separately. And everything is amortized by now. So 31st March 2003, nothing is remaining in the balance sheet. So this is a solution. You can go through it. So this is towards Ind AS 20 problems. Okay, so next I will move towards Ind AS 102. Share-based payments. I hope you know the basics. Let's do these problems now. A parent company P grants 30 shares to 100 employees of its subsidiary company S. Oh, parents company, holding company, parents company P grants to subsidiary company employees. We have a subsidiary S and their employee. Parents company is giving the grants, ESOP to employees of subsidiary company on a condition that employee shall remain employed by the company as for 3 years. Assume that at the outset, at the end of the year 1, 2, it is expected that all employees will remain employed for 3 years. So everybody is fit and fine, good. At the end of year 3, none of the employees have left. The fair value of the shares on the grant date is 5 per share. Company S agrees to reimburse the company P over the term of arrangement for 75% of final expense incurred by company S. Company S agrees to reimburse company P over the term of arrangement. Okay, what should be the accounting treatment in the books of company P and company S? So please think from if this statement was not there, grant was given directly, what would be the situation? Now subsidiary, yes, how would have they would have recognized this payment amount, 5 per share, whatever the amount, let's say amount to be paid. They would have passed an entry amount received, bank accounts, then the discount given, whatever, that is what ESOP expense, and 2, or let's say, I don't know whether the shares are received or not, let's say the ESOP expense to whatever amount paid, ESOP expense to amount paid to bank. They would have passed an entry like this. Now, to bank they are not doing because they are not paying directly. Parents is paying, so you write ESOP expense to parents P. So parents P, why will holding company do this exercise? That is because they have the interest in the subsidiary. So therefore, we treat like this, amount payable to parents P. If amount is not payable, it's like a benefit received. It's like a contribution received. It's like a contribution received from parents company, like that you are going to do. So it will be like a grant received or equity contribution from parent company. Like that you are going to write for this credit. And what would the holding company does? they are giving the shares without any direct benefit. So had they received direct benefit, bank account would have been debited, or they would have now, but the benefit, they are not having any benefit directly. So what will happen to the debit entry? To bank they will do, but debit side they will say we are paying towards subsidiary company. It's our company. We are investing in their company. So investment in nature of equity. Investment in subsidiary in the nature of equity account debit to bank. That's what the parent company is going to do. But there's some reimbursement also happening. Let's see what the solution looks like, and detailed calculation also. Okay. Company is expected to recognize an expense totaling 15,000. Let's see how is that. 30 shares of 100 employees, each of them they're getting, and the fair value is 5 rupees. So 30 into 100 into 5 rupees, 15,000, and the condition is over a period of 5 years. So basically divided by 5. Every year we recognize equal amount, and expects a reimbursement to be 75%. So 75% we are going to pay it back to the whole subsidiary company, holding company. Subsidiary company will pay them back. So to that extent we will pay the amounts. So expense total reimbursement coming to 15,000 into 75%, which is 11,250, spread across 3 years into 1 by 3. So what entry the subsidiary company will pass? We are incurring 5,000, 15,000 divided by 5. But out of 5,000, 5,000, total 15,000, 75% we are going to pay cash. It is expected to be reimbursed. Balance will be borne by holding company, which will be treated as a contribution from holding company. So employee benefit expense 5,000, 75% of that 3750 that is going to be paid, reimbursed, and balance is not reimbursed. That is like a benefit received but no expense payable. So benefit received from the parent company, equity contribution received, contribution from parent. The same entry will be reversed in accounting for company P. Exact opposite. They are going to receive 3,750 from them, and 1,250 the benefit they are giving, but they are not receiving anything. Basically that is investment in subsidiary in the nature of equity. So investment in company S in the nature of equity, account debit, bank account debit to equity 5,000, that is 2 share capital or 2 bank, whatever it is, 2 shares issued, 2 share capital, 2 security premium, all those things will be to equity depending on how many shares are issued. Hope you understood broadly what is the point here. Holding company is issuing the shares. So share capital equity is credited, investment in subsidiaries debited, because it's the benefit we are investing in the subsidiary company. Benefit we are giving to subsidiary company, we are treating it as an investment in the books of holding company. But for subsidiary company point of view, it's a benefit received from my parent company. They have given some money to me like that. So we will be treating it as, instead of money, they have given the shares which is given to the employees. So we are going to treat it as a contribution received. To explain in other words, you can treat like this. You have parent company, you have the subsidiary company, you have the employees. So effectively what is happening is Parent is giving to the employee directly the shares. But accounting will not happen like that. Accounting will be like parents has given the shares to subsidiary company, and the subsidiary company has given the shares, or let's say cash, whatever it is, to employees. So subsidiary company is treated like a mediator. They have received the shares and they have given the shares, but they have received the benefit. So indirectly you have to account like this. Anyway, this is towards group accounting, or share-based payments among holding and subsidiary within a group. Hope you understood. Let's move forward. Okay, let's go to the next one. Net Limited issued 10,000 share appreciation rights (SAR) that vest immediately. No vesting period, no spread across, immediately. Please note this point. To its employees on 1st of April. So expense should be recognized immediately, in fact. The SAR will be settled in cash. Using an option pricing model, at the date it is estimated that the fair value of SAR is 100 rupees. SAR can be exercised anytime until 31st March 2020. This is interesting point. On 1st of April 2017, it vested immediately. But you have the option to exercise till 31st March 2020. This is called as exercise period, not vesting period. So some people think I should spread across 3 years. No, there is no condition. You have to be for 3 years to be eligible for this. If that is the case, then that is vesting period. We spread across the vesting period of 3 years. This is vested immediately, but time till 31st of March 2020 to exercise. Exercise period 3 years. And it is expected that out of total employees, 94% of the end of the period, 31st 18, 91% of the next year will exercise an option. And finally, this were vested at the end of third year. This is a conflicting sentence. I think we should understand finally when 3 years are completed, 85% of the employees exercise the option. You are required to pass the entries to show the effect of the above transaction. So what is the logic? What we are going to do? Vested immediately, recognize the expense immediately. But exercise period, still time is there. So what do? Every time some people exercise, we are going to revise our expense, revise our liability, and we treat it as accounting estimate. Got the point? Recognize the liability immediately. As and when subsequent estimate changes, you account it as changes in accounting estimate. How? Let us do this. Fair value of SAR is given, which change we should consider that as well. We have this format which we are going to follow. This format if you know it, we have been following. 1st of April 2017 till 20, 18, 19, 20. Okay, let me just put the dates correctly. 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay. Let me put the amounts quickly. Number of employees expected to satisfy 10,000 on that day full amount. SAR per employee 10,000 or 11,000. 10,000. Okay, 10,000. And fair value on that day is 100. So SAR per employee, we just don't have total 10,000 together. Together we have 10,000. Fair value per right, it is hundreds. Total expense, so it's going to be 10,000 into 100, which is 10 lakh. Vesting period immediately 1 year. So closing balance should be 10 lakh. There is no opening balance. So current year expense is 10 lakh. Then the estimation changes. You see estimation, it happened to be 94%, 91%, ultimately 80%. So 10,000 into 94%. 10,000 into 91%, 10,000 into 85%. So 94% means 9,400, 9,100, then 85% means 8,500. Fair value also changed. 132, 139, 141. 132, 139, 141. So you multiply, that is the total expense. 9,400 into 132, 12,40,800. Expenses immediately. So 12,40,800 should be the closing balance, but opening balance is the previous closing balance, which is 10 lakh. So 2,40,800 expense for the first year. So first year how much will go? First year, beginning of the year 10 lakh will go, and end of the year 2,40,800 will go. Effectively 12,40,800 will go to first year P&L account. Opening date, closing date. Next year end 9,100 into 139, 12 lakh 64,900. 1 year. This is closing balance 12,64,900, and previous closing balance opening 12,40,800. So minus 12,40,800. Accounting estimate change 24,100. 24,100. Then this 8,500 into 141. 11,98,500. Expense against 1 year. Then closing balance same 11,98,500. Opening balance 12,64,900. That is previous closing balance. So it's a reversal of expense, minus number actually. So this year we are going to reverse the expense. Opposite entry 66,400. 66,400. Okay. Let's see what is the journal entry will look like. Let's go through the journal entries quickly. Employee benefit expense to share-based payments liability. See, first year 10 lakh, beginning of the year, end of the year 2,40,800. Again, employee benefit expense to share-based payment liability. Second year, again, revised amount that is changes in accounting estimate, employee benefit expense to share-based payment liability, and third year reversal entry, share-based payment liability to share employee benefit expense. It's a credit entry, and last year we make the payment, share-based payment liability account debit to bank. Simple entries. You can also pass one more entry, that is transferring it to P&L accounts. In the exam point of view, it's okay, or you can write within brackets P&L account. That much is sufficient. That's what even institute has told. So even this is, I think, 5 marks questions in exam. You need not transfer P&L account entry and all, right within brackets, or even if we ignore also, that is sufficient from exam point of view. So that's it. This problem is number 20 problem. Let's move towards next. So next one, I think this is also an examination question, I think. On 1st of April 2017, Kara Limited granted award of 150 options to each of its 1000 employees on a condition of continuous employment with Kara Limited for 3 years. A typical problem, 3 years. And the benefits will be settled in cash of an equal amount of share price. Fair value of each option on the grant date was 129. Towards the end of 31st March 2018, Kara Limited share price would be dropped. So on 1st of April 2019, the management chose to reduce the exercise price of options. There is a modification. On the date of repricing of the fair value of the original share option granted was 50 and the fair value of the repriced option was 80. So fair value increased. Thus, the incremental fair value of each modified option was 30. On the date of the award, the management estimated that 10% of the employees would leave the entity before the end of 3 years. So 900 awards would vest. During 1819, it became apparent that fewer employees than expected were leaving. So management revised the estimate to number only 5%, that is 950 would vest. At the end of 2020, 930 employees actually vested. Determine the expense for each year and pass journal entries as per the relevant Ind AS. So this also for calculation, we can follow the regular format, the tabular format what I used to give you. But only thing is we should prepare 2 tables. One table for the existing one and one more table for the incremental one, that is for the modification. And modification, what the standard says, if the modification results in increase in the fair value, and in that case we recognize over remaining life. But if it is decrease in the fair value, that we ignore it. Understood? Original amount will be spread across 3 years. The new amount what we get, if it is incremental, that is spread across remaining years. But if it is decreasing, that we ignore. So first we'll account for the original one, then we'll account for the revised one. Okay, so let me give the format for that. Actually, I think I don't have to do the regular format. I can do the cumulative expense minus expense already recognized, balance expense for the year. I think there's a broad format we can follow it. or I'll just show you what institute format. You can follow my regular format, but broadly, what is the concept? Cumulative expense, what is already recognized, to be recognized, minus what is already recognized, balance expense to be recognized. So let me explain that one. Or you can follow regular format also. Both ways, fine. I'll show you the calculation. Let's see if you're able to understand. So what we follow, 3 years are there, starting from 18, 19, 20. So 31st March 2018, 31st March 2019, and 31st March 2020. So what I'm going to do, I will calculate cumulative expense, basically liability, closing balance. So I can say directly the closing balance of liability basically means cumulative expense minus opening balance of liability. Liability means the share-based payments, that one. Opening balance of liability, that is within brackets you can write. Just for your reference purpose, I will write it. Closing balance is cumulative expense already recognized. Cumulative expense or cumulative expense till date. Cumulative expense to be recognized. And the opening balance means cumulative expense already recognized. Okay, so we'll do this for original year, that is original amount, original fair value, and then I'll repeat for original fair value. The difference is what actually I will get it off for expense for the year. Expense for the year. The same thing I'm going to repeat for this revised one, that is modification, revised or modified one, incremental. I will say incremental. Same format I will follow. 31st March 18, 31st March 19, 31st March 20. Closing balance. This I will not repeat the expansion. Hope you understand. Minus the opening balance. Then expense for the year. Expense for the year. So effectively, two kinds of expense goes to P&L account. This expense, original fair value, and incremental expense for the year. Both of them will go to P&L account together. You have to add it up. So first year, how do you calculate? There were 150 options to 1000 employees. So 150 options to 1000 employees. And how many are expected? They said that 10% of the employees shall leave. Only 900 would vest. So multiplied by 900 then. Or 90% I can multiply. Directly they said 900 actually. So I don't have to take 1000. I'll multiply it by 900. Then multiplied by fair value 50 rupees, original 50 rupees, and 1/3. First year 1/3, second year 2/3, third year 3/3. So that is 150 into 900 into 50 divided by 3. 22,50,000. Sorry, original amount was 129. Sorry, original rupees, not 50 rupees, 129. 129. That is what we should take. 150 into 900 into 129 divided by 3. 150 employees, 150 share, 900 each. Fair value 129 into 1 by 3. So 150 into 900 into 129 divided by 3. 58 lakh 5,000. 58 lakh 5,000. Opening balance is 0. So entire amount is current year expense 58 lakh 5,000. Second year estimation changed. Fair value change we account separately. Instead of 900, 950 would vest on 31st March 2019. So you take 150 employees, 150 options into 950 people into 129 into 2 by 3. That is the closing balance. So 150 into 950 into 129 into 2 by 3. 1,22,55,000. Opening balance is previous year closing, that is 58,05,000. And balance is current year expense, that is 64,50,000. Okay, on the same year, I will do for this incremental also. First year, there is nothing happened. Second year, the incremental happened. And how much incremental amount? From 50 rupees to 80 rupees, 30 rupees incremental amount we should consider. So closing balance will be 150 options, 950 employees, 129 you don't take it, incremental 30 rupees, fair value incremental 30 rupees into 2 by 3. 28,50,000. There is no opening balance. So expense for the year is also 28,50,000. So what will be total expense? 28,50,000 plus 64,50,000. I'll say total expense for the year. Sorry, not 2 by 3. Remaining 1 by 2, no? Remaining year is only 2 years. This is 1 by 2, not 2 by 3. Remaining is 1 by 2. Sorry, I did the wrong calculation. Please change it. Remaining year is 2 years. So this year, next year. So 1 by 2 I should do. Next 2 by 2 I'll do. 21,37,500. Add 58,05,000. 64,50,000. So total 85,87,500. 85,87,500. Similarly, I quickly do for the third year. Finally, how many people have vested? 930 have vested. 150 options, 930 multiplied by 129 into 3 by 3. That is equal number. So 150 into 930 into 129, 1 crore 79, 95, 500. 1 crore 79, 95, 500. Subtract the opening balance, that is previous year closing balance. 1 crore 22,55,000, 57,40, 500. And this year, same you do 150 into 950 into 30 into 2 by 2 you can do. Anyway, that's one only. So 150 into 950 into 30, not 950, sorry, 930. Finally, only 930 people have vested. So 150 into 930 into 30. 41,85,000. Opening balance, previous year closing balance, that is sorry, this I've written wrongly. This is 21,37,500 and total expense will become 85,87,500. Yeah, this one. So 21,37,500 is the previous year closing balance. So minus 21,37,500, 20,47,500. So total expense will be 20,47,500 plus 57,40,500. So 77,88,000. So this is 77,88,000. Okay, so these are the calculations. I'll quickly show you the journal entry also what they've asked. Okay, journal entries. First year, as I told you, 55 lakh, this 58 lakh 5,000, 58 lakh 5,000 employee benefit expense to share based payment, outstanding share based option. Then second year 64 lakh 50,000 plus this one, that is 85 lakh 87,500, same entry, P&L entry you don't have to pass. And third year this total 77 lakh 88,000 employee benefit expense to liability. Then we don't know the breakup of face value and separately how much amount collected and all, the amount received, that and all we don't know. That is transferred to share capital directly. So entire amount 2 crore 21,800 total amount, that is transferred to share capital equity. P&L entry not passed, that is okay from exam point of view. If you want you can pass, or within brackets you can mention, sufficient. In this problem in fact there is one more point to be kept in mind, because they said it will be benefit will be settled in cash of an equivalent amount of share price. So you can also treat this as cash settlement. And cash settlement you can also say to bank finally, but okay, that you ignore. But when you have the this one arrangement and all, when you have this modified option modification and all, will come only in equity settlement. So problem is solved based on equity settlement, not on cash settlement. They have slightly confused, they have inconsistency. But anyway, you leave that point. Institute also told the same thing. You leave that point. We'll solve as per equity method. Okay, so that's it with respect to this problem. Let's go further. New Age Technology Limited has entered the following share-based payment transactions. On 1st of April 2011, New Age Technology Limited decides to grant share option to employees. The scheme was approved by the employees on 30th of June. New Age Technology determined fair value of the share option on 1st of April 2001. So here the grant date was 1st of April, but approval took place on 30th of June. So basically you have to identify grant date and measurement date in all the three cases. In case of share based payments, supported by rationale for the determination. So reasons. Let us read the first situation, then I'll go for second and third situation. First situation, let's see what institute tells you. Okay, first let me just quickly read for you the definition of grant date and measurement dates. The date on which the entity and another party includes an employee agree. Please focus on the word agree. Being when the entity and counterparty have shared the understanding of the terms and condition at the grant date, entity confers the counterparty the right to cash, other assets or equity instruments of the entity provided specified vesting conditions, if any, are met. If that agreement is subject to an approval process, grant date is when the date approval is obtained. Please focus on this point. That is grant date. Measurement date, the date at which the fair value, grant date, whatever the fair value to be determined, when do you measure it? The date at which fair value of equity instrument is granted for the purpose of Ind AS for these transactions with the employees, others providing similar service, measurement date is grant date. For transaction with parties other than employees, those who providing services, the measurement date is the date entity obtains the counterparty service when the service is actually rendered. Applying the above conditions in the given scenario, following would be the conclusion. Okay, so in the first case, what will be the case? Approval is on 30th of June and grant is given on 1st of April. So Okay, so grant date 30th of June and measurement date seconds. Okay. So grant date 30th of June 2001, measurement date 30th of June 2001, 30th of July, the date on which the scheme was approved by employees. So base for measurement date, the measurement date is the grant date. So 30th of June 2001. Why July comes 30th of June? Okay, maybe why they mentioned July? Maybe that is for the next part of the question, I think. Okay, it is actually I think next one. Okay, next sentence. Let's read the next part. So for this, both are 30th of June. Grant date 30th of June, because when the approval is to be obtained, that becomes 30th of June. So approval is obtained, grant date, and the measurement date is the grant date. So grant date is 30th of June. So measurement date is also 30th of June for this purpose, employees. Second situation, on 1st of April 2001, the New Age Technology entered into a contract to purchase IT equipment from Bombay. This is not employees, it's somebody else. And agreed that the contract will be settled by issuing the equity instruments of New Age Technology. So the settlement is not by cash, it is by issuing shares. New Age Technology Limited received the IT equipment on 30th of July. Okay, for this, that point was the 30th of July. The share-based payment transaction was measured on the fair value of equity instruments on 1st of April 2001. So in this case, it is going to be 30th of July. Okay. Okay, now it looks fine. So the date when it is received, see, when it is not an employee, for a transaction with other than employees, the measurement date is the entity obtains the goods or counterparty renders the service. That is on 30th of July is the measurement date and 1st of April is the grant date. The base for grant date, the date on which they enter into a contract, but the measurement date, the date on which goods are obtained from the counterparty. Last situation, a New Age Technology Limited decides to grant data to employees. The scheme was approved by employees on 30th of June. The issue of share option was subject to same approval by shareholders. The scheme was approved in the general meeting on 30th of September. The fair value of the equity instruments recognized on 30th of September. So in this case, with the employees, so grant date is 30th September and grant date is measurement date 30th September for employees. So basically, what is summary from this problem? For employees, look at the approval date. Approval date is the grant date. Approval date is the measurement date. That is for employees. If it is non-employees, like for providing services, look the date on which approval took place. Approval is grant date. And then when the goods are provided or when the services are actually provided or received, on that day, it is going to be measurement date. So only measurement date differs for employees versus outsiders. So that's the learning from this problem. Let's move on. Company P is holding company for B. Company is a holding company for company B. A group share based payment is being organized in which parent company issues equity shares to employees of company B. The details are below: number of employees, grant, fair value, number of shares of grant to each employee, vesting conditions, fair value per share, pass the entries in the books of company B and company B. This I've explained earlier, it's a repetition. I'll quickly tell you once more. Parent company issue the shares to the employees of subsidiary company. So it is to be accounted like company, subsidiary, holding company given the shares to subsidiary company, and subsidiary company issued the shares to their employees. That is how the chain should be accounted. So in the books of holding company, the entry will be, they don't recognize expense. It is not their expense. Instead, you recognize investment in the shares of subsidiary company. So investment in subsidiary company in the nature of equity to share capital or to equity. We don't know the nominal value. Face value we know. Okay. So we know the share capital, balancing figure, we can transfer it to security premium. So invest in the books of holding company, I'm telling, investment in subsidiary to share capital, face value to security premium over and above face value. In the books of subsidiary company, they are getting a benefit. It's like a benefit received from the subsidiary holding company and given it to the employees. So benefit received, for that what you are going to do, or expense you are incurring, employee benefit expense account debit, whatever the concession you are giving, to whatever the employee benefit expense to a contribution from parent company. That's the entry you are going to pass in the books of subsidiary. So that's the logical part. Let's quickly look at the what solutions institute has given. Two simple entries. Okay. So in the books of holding company, in the books of subsidiary company, holding company, investment account debit to share capital to security premium. How much is the amount? Number of shares, number of employees 100, number of shares per employee 25. So 100 into 25. And fair value is 87. So out of 87, 10 rupees face value, balance 77 rupees security premium. So 100 into 25 into 87 rupees. What is an expense for the subsidiary company is investment, because you are paying on behalf of subsidiary company. So that is what I think you get 2,17,500. Please confirm. 100 into 25 into 87. Yes. Hundreds into 25 into fair value 87. Out of 87, 10 rupees share capital, balance 77 rupees security premium. Subsidiary company, corresponding entry, they will debit employee benefit expense for the same 2,17,500, and they will treat it as a contribution, equity capital contribution from parent company, capital contribution that will be in the reserve surplus, other equity, basically in the books of subsidiary company, same amount. So that's it. Simple problem. Accounting treatment in group books towards share-based payments towards ESOP, especially when parent company issues shares to the employees of subsidiary company. Parent company treat like an investment, subsidiary company treat like a contribution received. For them money paid, for subsidiary company like a money received. Okay, that's it with respect to this problem. Okay, remaining portions will continue tomorrow. We'll stop at this point. We'll see you tomorrow at same time. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.